listening to TallGuys Podcast with your host, Bryan Savens.
We're not going to talk about how Cleveland stole LeBron from the Miami Heat. I mean, that should be the biggest steal.
And Luke Guest.
You don't really know anything about curling, but you're like, go USA, and then you win, you're like pumped up for a second.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Tall Guys Podcast. My name is Bryan Savens, and joining me today is Luke Guest.
Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for joining us again this week.
And today we're going to talk about all things NBA. First off, we're going to talk about the potential Andrew Wiggins for Kevin Love trade. Luke, what is your stance on whether or not the Cavaliers should trade Andrew Wiggins to acquire Kevin Love?
I really think it comes down to what Cleveland wants to build there. Obviously, Kevin Love, I think, gives them the best chance to win just based on the fact that Wiggins isn't proven yet. But at the same time, I think that if they believe in Wiggins, as most of the country does, I don't see why they should give up a potential piece for the future for essentially a stat stealer like Kevin Love. You know, Kevin Love's been the best player on his team the whole time he's been in the league. And it's hard for me to really make a guess or a gander as to why or whether or not he will be good in a multiple good player system, i.e. Chris Bosh when he went from Toronto to Miami. He was very above average in Toronto. And then when he went to Miami, he became more of a glorified role player. And so is Kevin Love really transcendent enough to take his numbers and take them to Cleveland? And if so, I think that that's a young nucleus that can win for a long time. But if you don't think that, if you think he's only capable of being a one or part of a two-man show, then I wouldn't trade him for Wiggins. There's just too much potential there.
I would probably have to disagree with you just because of the difference between Kevin Love and the connection that you made with Chris Bosh. I think that Kevin Love is a much better scorer and rebounder than Chris Bosh has ever been. You say he's a stat stealer, but there's just this thing about LeBron James, and he makes his teammates better. And I think that LeBron can facilitate an offense and really help out Kevin Love. And think about this starting lineup. I'm assuming that they're probably going to send Andrew Wiggins and Anthony Bennett and another first-round pick. So they're probably going to keep the majority of the team. Okay, the starting lineup: Kyrie Irving, Dion Waiters, LeBron James, Kevin Love, and Anderson Varejao. Now, that lineup to me is just wow. I want to see that lineup just as much as everyone else wants to see Wiggins and LeBron play together. Kevin Love is a beast on the boards. And another thing, you need to have a balanced attack when it comes to offense, and defense is another thing we'll talk about in a little bit. You need to have a balanced offensive rotation, and with a point guard who is a pretty good passer. I mean, he likes to shoot the ball, but you also need a shooting point guard. You need someone who on the wing who can guard and who can make three-pointers and slash LeBron. And you need a big man who can rebound with the best people in the league, who can stretch the floor, as we've seen now that the game has evolved into a three-point league. Kevin Love can do all those things. He can rebound. He's probably one of the best rebounders I've seen in this era. And he can shoot the three ball a lot better than Chris Bosh can. I know that, and that's definitely helped them. That definitely helped Miami last year towards the end of the postseason. But I think it would be a great idea to do it. I agree that Wiggins has a very big upside, but it's Kevin Love is in his starting to get into his prime right now, and LeBron's in win now mode.
Well, I agree with your point, but let's pump the brakes here and remember that Kevin Love maybe played 10 games last year. Couldn't get healthy, couldn't stay healthy, and ended up having a major surgery towards the end of last season, or 2013. Well, no, was it last season that he was that injured? I can't remember.
Yeah, well, it was last season. Yeah, he had a yeah.
And so you're talking about a guy who, yes, like he consistently is right up there in the running with rebounding champion. You know, he's a guy that can, you know, give you a double every night, no problem. I don't know, like for the talent that Andrew Wiggins exhibits and who he could really become, especially on the defensive end, I don't know. I see it as almost like a wasted pick. You know, you're gambling on the fact that you win right away. And you know me, I just don't like teams built that way. I don't like teams that, you know, want to win right away and do so by making a splash in the free agent market. And that's the thing, like you live and die by the free agent market. So if you have a way to do like what the Caps did in getting LeBron and then having Kevin Love's not a free agent, of course, but you know, getting all that, the attraction of LeBron to Cleveland, you get all those put together in one place, and it's just risk. It's a risk either way, and it's a risk I wouldn't take. Obviously, you would take it, and I'm a Kevin Love fan too. I would hate to give up Andrew Wiggins, who has been touted along with Jabari Parker as being one of the next superstars, and I would hate to just give that up, watch him succeed somewhere else, and then it backfire. But I'm a lot more cautious than probably you are.
I'm thinking about it in terms of the win now mode, but I'm trying to take I'll take the mindset of the Cleveland Cavaliers front office right now. They realize that they only have about 3 to 4 years left of LeBron being the best thing since Jordan. And the main reason why LeBron left last time is because they didn't put anything around him. He had an old Shaq. That was a big move. They had Antoine Jameson, and that was what Danny Ferry thought was a big move as a GM. No, it's not. Those type of moves were not big, and LeBron understood that, and that's why he left. And he wanted to win championships, and they weren't putting the right pieces around him, and no one wanted to go to Cleveland as well. Now people kind of want to go to Cleveland because they realize that LeBron transcends sports. He is one of the biggest names in sports of all time, and he's proven that he's a champion. I think that Kevin Love, the addition of Kevin Love right now would be something that will help them win. And another thing, people are acting like this Kevin Love deal is only going to happen, like will only help them in the next 2 or 3 years. Kevin Love's only 25 years old. That team is still pretty dang young. Just because they give up a 19-year-old and a 20-year-old for a 25, it's not like he's 30. So that team can win for years and imagine that. Okay, so they trade for him and they give up Wiggins. And I have another point that we're probably going to talk about in a couple minutes about when they could trade for Kevin Love. But say they traded for him like right now. They would go into training camp with Kevin Love, LeBron James, and the rest of their team, and Kyrie Irving. That would give them time to gel, and they could play an entire season and get that chemistry going, and probably go to the finals with that team. If they win, who knows? It could be like Miami the first year. It takes a year to get acclimated.
Mm-hmm.
That team for the next 4 years is very competitive. You get Kevin Love in his prime, you get Kyrie going into his prime, and the last couple years of LeBron's prime for 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
And then whenever LeBron gets kind of down out of his prime. He doesn't have people who are going out of their prime with him like he did in Miami.
But you know what? It was something else that is curious is the Timberwolves front office also shopping love for Klay Thompson. And if I were an NBA GM, I feel like Andrew Wiggins is who I would want over Klay Thompson. Just how what's the word I'm looking for? How he's just kind of a niche player. Like, yes, he's a fantastic player. He's a great shooter. He's a pretty long wing defender.
Yeah.
But I don't really see how you can equate the value between Klay Thompson and Andrew Wiggins and sleep at night. I don't really know how they're considering that to be an equal deal. I mean, obviously, when the Cavs just offer, Dion Waiters and Anthony Bennett for Kevin Love, that's a terrible trade. But giving up Wiggins when they're looking for Klay Thompson, I mean, that's really savvy on the Cavaliers' part. But it makes me question what Minnesota is actually trying to do and what they're trying to get out of it, because they know that Kevin Love is their best asset. And if they're going to go into full rebuild mode, they do need to trade him before they let him get on the market at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of comes to the point I was going to make. A pretty interesting article that Bill Simmons wrote on Grantland. He talked about how right now the power lies in Minnesota's hands. They can pick and choose where they kind of want Kevin Love, if they want to keep him, if they want to trade him. And it really is David Lee and Klay Thompson, because straight up Klay Thompson for Kevin Love is no bueno. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And right now, realistically, if I were the Minnesota Timberwolves, I would trade get David Lee and Klay Thompson as opposed to Wiggins and Anthony Bennett in future picks, because you're actually getting someone who has been an all-star, and David Lee, been an all-star before, plays the same position as Kevin Love. Not the shooter or rebounder that Kevin Love is, but he's not.
I think he's as good of a rebounder, but I think he's a lot more of a post player. He's a lot more of an interior presence than Kevin Love usually is.
Yeah, and then you get Klay Thompson, who is a tremendous shooter, is just as good a three-point shooter, if not better, than Steph Curry. So you get two pretty good guys, and then you get, in the other deal, you get Wiggins, who is unproven, and Anthony Bennett, who's really unproven.
No, he's proven. He's proven to not be very good. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a more of a gamble, and if you think about it this way, you're helping the Cavaliers if you make that trade. Yeah, you might be getting someone who might be a superstar in the future, but you're helping them right now. And you shouldn't be I know all GMs or players think about now, coaches think about today and tomorrow, and GMs think about today, tomorrow, and next week. But if you're not focused on right now, you're helping a team that's already pretty good become that much better. Initially the reports about Dion Waiters, Anthony Bennett, and first-round picks for Kevin Love, like that offer.
Yeah,
how absurd that is. Yeah, absurd that was. Like,
but Anthony Bennett's lost 15 pounds. He's a whole different player.
Well, and also to kind of get back to what I was talking about, Bill Simmons' article, he said that if I were the Cleveland Cavaliers, I would wait. I would see what Wiggins, LeBron, and Kyrie Irving are like together. And you can always trade them at the deadline, because guess what? Minnesota is going to do something with Kevin Love by the deadline. Because if they don't, he's already made it clear he's not re-signing. So if they don't,
he'd just walk for free.
He's walk for free. The best case scenario is you get a sign and trade, which is pretty interesting. And my point that they can do sign and trades, even though, anyway, that's another topic.
What I'd love for him to go. I hate the Lakers as a Rockets fan, but I would like to see Kevin Love and Westbrook go to LA
That I
and play
mean,
there.
UCLA, yeah,
I think that'd be fun to watch.
it would be.
But that's just a dream for me to see that happen in
Yeah,
that town. But I mean, it all goes back to relationships too. I mean, you're talking about a USA pipeline of relationships between LeBron and Kevin Love, gold medal team, and so uh, there's a lot behind the scenes that we don't know. I mean, just being regular old podcast guys, there's only so much information that we have access to, and
yeah,
so, but I think that really plays a role in the fact that LeBron probably has Kevin Love's number and is like, hey man, like just come play with me, like let's get this done. You know what I mean?
and
I
there's
mean,
been
it's
reports that he's reached out to him. So yeah,
yeah. Well, I'm sure he has, and I think that'll go a long way between the players. But really, it's just up to the front office now. But it shows how much of a role, even USA basketball is kind of shoving its way into affecting how the league is structured. Because you
yeah,
look at, Bosch joining Wade and LeBron in Miami 4 years ago. It was the same kind of deal. It's right after the Olympics, and that they bonded, I guess, or I mean, they've always been friends, being elites in
yeah.
the league, but
It gave him an outlet to or an opportunity to come together every 2 to 4 years to keep that relationship going that
right,
they develop on draft night. Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Team USA has helped that. And I know that Kevin Love and Westbrook are still good friends. And if it comes to the point where nothing happens and the Minnesota Timberwolves don't trade him and he just walks, there could be a sign and trade that goes on with the Lakers, and same with Westbrook in 2015. So who knows? It could happen. But if I were the Cavaliers, I would eventually trade for Kevin Love because they give you the best option. And because worst case scenario is they keep Wiggins, and there's been reports that they plan on signing him later this week, Andrew Wiggins, and if they sign him, that means most likely that they're not going to trade right away, that they're going to wait. And
I guess to me, if I thought they were going to trade, I thought they would do it on draft night.
yeah, that's true. That probably would.
Of course, we didn't know LeBron was going to Cleveland then.
Exactly,
But
and that's another reason why we can probably say that that's why they didn't trade. I'm sure if they had traded for Love, but I mean, if you think about it, Love on the Cavaliers, and then could have probably affected LeBron's decision even more and would have made it even easier to come out. But it seems like he's had his heart set on Cleveland for a while. But
yeah, a Sports Illustrated article doesn't just appear out of thin air.
exactly. But yeah, I think that you should keep the power and let Minnesota just like kind of wither away and be like, okay, we'll take Wiggins. And here's another thing: if Wiggins doesn't pan out, like in the first half of the season before the trade deadline, or really 3/5 of the season, he's not panning out to what everyone thought, then you can trade him because Minnesota is desperate, but he's still going to be better than anyone they're going to get, really, potential-wise and stuff like that. And you can trade for Kevin Love and Anthony Bennett and future picks, and still fit. And then the Cavaliers can have a good team, the same team that everyone's hoping that they have at the start of the season that are for the Kevin Love trade. And then you have a little bit of time to come together. Now, if you're going to do that, you run the risk of the chemistry issues. But I mean, I say it's worth it if he's not playing well. And then, best case scenario, Wiggins is a superstar in his rookie year, and or not necessarily a superstar because they don't need him to be a superstar. They need him to be a defensive stopper, and they need him to be a 2 that can make timely baskets and run the floor. That's really all they need him to be, at least in his first year. And he's working out good, and it's the best thing ever, and they're a great team. Like, so that's, and then another cool thing, I guess, for your side of the argument is that comes at a cheap price too. So they could go out and they have a little bit of money to sign a decent not a mid-level exception like a veteran, but they have a little bit of money to play with next season. So it could be interesting. But I say trade for Kevin Love. It would probably be the best.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that plans out. I think that what's been shown so far in the summer league with Andrew Wiggins' performances. I mean, he hasn't absolutely dazzled, but there's been some highlight plays, and he has had some pretty good consistent play for the Cavaliers team in Vegas. And that just pertains to how entertaining it is to watch these players develop right before our eyes on TV. It's even more accessible than it used to be before. And it's just fun to see those prospects play right away, like right after the draft, instead of having to wait for a few months. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
That basketball has been able to do that and turn it into a big event.
Absolutely. And for a while now, it was just in Las Vegas, but now they do Orlando and then Vegas. So that's another opportunity to see some of these guys. And that's only shortly after the draft, a couple of days after the draft when they start in Orlando. So it's like almost immediately you say, okay, these guys are on these teams. I really want to see them. Oh, a couple of days later, they're playing, and you get to see. Of course, it's not the actual roster, but these are guys that are hungry to make the roster. And yeah, I agree with you. It's a great opportunity for these guys to get better, and we have more access to see them play, and the anticipation of seeing Jabari Parker and Andrew Wiggins, and it's great. And to see guys that you don't normally expect, because Vegas and Orlando Summer League really always has a surprise guy that you didn't think was going to be the leading scorer or the leading rebounder or the big highlight guy, but it always doesn't fail to surprise you. So, I love it. I love Summer League.
Yeah, I've been. I haven't really watched it as much as I would like, as far as besides the Rockets games. But I mean, for me, I can't help but be impressed for the kind of jump that. I mean, being a Rockets fan, watching Donatas Montiunas last year and even the year before that was extremely frustrating. The guy gets into foul trouble too much. He kind of falls asleep on defense. His offense is suspect at best. He shoots 20% from three. So it's always been frustrating to, watch him in the NBA. But you take a look at what he's done in the Summer League. I mean, he's shooting over 64% from the field, averaging 16 and 7. I mean, this guy, he might be one of the few 7-footers to be playing in the Summer League besides like Nerlens Noel, but he's really impressed me a lot. And another guy that's impressed me is Dougie McBuckets. I mean, you talk about McDermott's ability to score the basketball. Mm-hmm. You watch that one game where he scored like 30 points and he's just draining JJ Redick 3 after JJ Redick 3, and you're just man, I haven't seen that in an NBA environment in a long time. I mean, you're talking not Ray Allen Hall of Famer, but just Ray Allen and how he's able to dominate his game with his quick release. It's really good pickup for the Bulls. I'm really excited to see, how he's going to complement their team.
Yeah, absolutely. Another guy that has kind of been surprising me is Glenn Rice Jr. leading
from the D League,
from the D League, and is playing for Washington. Leading the Summer League in scoring of 25 points per game, 7.8 rebounds, 2.3 assists. He's scoring at will, and Tim Hardaway Jr. as well for the Knicks. He played pretty well in his rookie year, so it's not a surprise he's playing well. But yeah, these guys and another one like Tony Snell for Chicago, he was at the end of the bench, but it gives him an opportunity to play. It's basically Summer League, and I don't want the connotation to be bad, but it's the garbage time players.
Right.
Getting an opportunity to showcase their talents.
Well, and then you remember that these garbage time players were the best in their city or the best in their state at that time. And so you kind of reawaken the fact that, like, yeah, everybody in the NBA is really, really good.
Yeah, yeah. And these guys, but the superstars are just that much better that they keep
Right.
them on the bench. But yeah, I love it. I mean, whenever I can, I watch a summer league game, and you see a highlight here and there of people getting dunked on, and just athletic plays. Did you see Jabari Parker's reverse slam the other day?
Yeah, that was nuts.
Yeah, he's players like that usually thrive in summer league, and we talked about how Wiggins and Jabari Parker haven't been the biggest ones, but you could probably chalk that up to maybe saving themselves a little bit because they know they're going to be on the final roster. But I mean, it's cool because the guys that aren't the big names are showing that they can play too, and it's competitive. Did you see the double overtime game? I think it was the Portland Trailblazers and the Golden State Warriors the other night.
I saw the score. I didn't watch the game.
It was a double overtime game, and in summer league they don't do like a certain amount of time. If it's in double overtime, it's the first basket to score wins. And so and it went back and forth, and there was just like a bunch of loose balls and almost turnovers, and then they saved it. And I think
felt like March Madness.
Yeah, it was crazy, and that's the type of excitement and competitiveness and that you want to see from summer league, and it just shows that it's getting better. The competition's getting better, and the games are getting better. It's high scoring games, which people love to watch.
And that's a tribute to the NBA and their the resurgence of the D League, and how that league for the dregs of the NBA, that's where they go. I mean, that developmental league is just that. I mean, these players come out, give a really good showing in the summer league, and then next thing you know, they're starting, and that's the whole thing with sports to me, is that you kind of forget that it's very rare that high draft picks in sports make it to a superstar living up to the hype level.
Yep.
It's more common to get a no-name, somebody like James Harden, who wasn't really,
Yeah, James Harden was number 3 though, so.
To the Thunder, yeah, I guess so. But I mean, like, not high profile.
Tony Parker was probably
Parker, Ginobili.
Monty Ginobili was a second round pick. Yeah, but Harden's a little different. Yeah.
Chandler Parsons is another one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of somebody else who would be a really good example of that. Can't think of anybody right now. But I mean, you're talking about people who essentially are steals. I mean, there are plenty of stories in the NBA about people who are undrafted, and who make it or come in for a playoff series and they're really hot for 2 games, and then that's what propels their team to the finals, And so I think that it's really cool how, the summer league is growing, and, it still outshines the WNBA, which is going on right now. So not that that's hard to do, but still,
Yeah.
It's something.
Yeah, it is for sure. It's just, I mean, we can talk about this forever, but we won't. But it's a great opportunity, like we said, to continue to expand the league. I mean, I know the D League has risen in popularity as well. It's not as much as, say, Summer League is, but it's the NBA as a whole is benefiting from the rise in talent and the just the competitiveness of the Summer League and Summer League action. They're benefiting from it a whole lot, and it makes the league better whenever you get to put these young guys up against each other, or if you're Delonte West, young guys and an old guy. But to see them and really, and it kind of helps you as well for those undrafted guys who, and to help teams that may have drafted poorly, and also as a affirmation of what their efforts of drafting. It says, okay, we made the right choice. Like this kid is ready, or I didn't expect that from him.
Right.
Now we do. We can use him, type of thing. So it gives teams another opportunity to evaluate their rosters and include some of these young guys.
Right.
But let's move on to the next subject that we're going to talk about. A growing trend in the NBA is the relationship between superstars and maybe not big superstars, but well-known stars in the NBA, and as opposed to the relationship that players had in, say, like the 80s or the 90s. One relationship that's notable is LeBron James and Kevin Durant. It was a big topic in 2012 when they were facing each other in the finals. That LeBron and KD worked out together in the summer, and they were good friends. And there wasn't in the finals. Kevin Durant didn't have that type of competitive, "I'm going to bite your head off. We're not friends" type of attitude towards LeBron, and how it could be affecting the NBA. And greats have come out and said that that type of relationship would never fly back in the day. So what do you think on the state of superstar relationships, and do you think they should be good friends off the court, or do you think they should all not like each other and be super competitive?
Well, I will say this. I think the league is missing Reggie Miller as a player.
Yeah.
I think when you're talking about the way it was in the 70s and 80s, and this topic has been beaten like a dead horse, through this summer, and if you look at it and how the game has changed from being physical in a big way, in a large body way, to being physical in a wiry, athletic way, I think that there's less of a concentration on getting down and hurting somebody, and more of a concentration of, may the best player win this matchup.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that mutual respect thing. But I definitely think that there is certain parts of the league that is kind of lacking, because you don't really have those like huge sport rivalries really anymore. You don't really have things like that. You don't have Larry Magic. You don't have Jordan and everyone else. And sometimes you can say that that's just a lack of competitive nature, and I don't really agree with that. I think that competitive nature is there. I just think it's a lot more insidious. It's a lot more behind the scenes. It's not really like a talking on the court the whole time. I mean, like, the thing is, for me, seeing the Patrick Beverley Russell Westbrook exchange was so refreshing to watch that. Now, if I had been probably anything else but a Rockets fan, I would have hated Patrick Beverley because of, he is a bulldog. That's just who he is. He's not very good offensively. He knows how to hassle, and he knows how to, maybe pressure you into making a mistake, unless you're Damian Lillard, and it just doesn't matter. Or pretty much any other elite point guard. It remains to be seen about Beverley, and that's another topic for another day. But I think that at that moment, when that, however brief a rivalry or however long that memory will stay in Oklahoma City Thunder, fans' minds, I think that the league is lacking that quite a bit. And one person who I think who could really bring it back is Kobe. If he comes back this year and plays like he always has done, chip on his shoulder, chippy with the media, that kind of stuff, like, the humbleness is fine. But to me, eventually that's going to get kind of stagnant and boring. I kind of want to see, maybe not to the extent that others might want, where they want full-on brawls and stuff, and Malice in the Palace and all that sort of stuff. But I do like to see, I prefer to see that kind of rivalry stuff boiling over than, something like flopping, for instance.
Yeah.
I mean, and flopping is a huge, talking point, because nobody knows how to deal with it, really. Because You can be too strict, or you can be not strict at all, or you have to bring an instant replay to it. So I don't know. I think that the relationships, you're talking about Lance Stevenson even this past finals, or this past Eastern Conference Finals. Something like that was refreshing to watch. It was fun. It was funny and fun. You're looking at it and you're like, man, like, yeah, that guy's, a total jerk, and he's like trying to get in LeBron's head, but like everybody else is scared of LeBron.
Yeah.
It's like Jordan. You were scared to kind of talk to Jordan because you knew he was better than you.
Well,
unless you had like supreme confidence, which some people did.
Also, Gary Payton. Well, also another thing, Jordan was a master trash talker as well.
Right, exactly.
That's something that you don't see a lot as well is trash talking in the NBA. I think it's because
taunting rule, right? Isn't there?
There's a taunting rule. You can't really do that. So that's part of the NBA's
trying to clean up the F-bombs for national TV.
Exactly. Also, it has a lot to do with the fact that you have 17,000 cameras right in your face while you're on the court. And this is a very social world we live in. The NBA is definitely social media oriented, and your image, especially in a business sense, is a lot more valuable than it was back in the 80s, because you make millions and millions of dollars off of the endorsements and things like that. Not to say that they didn't make millions and millions. They didn't make the type of money that they can make now that they did back in the day. And there's also, with the lack of competition, I think that there are, back in the day, in say the 80s, there were teams that didn't need every player to be really, really good in order to win a championship. The teams had to be well-rounded, but I think there aren't any of those players, the enforcer players, like there was. And so you don't see as many hard fouls. And another thing is the flagrant foul is another reason why the NBA has kind of gone away from the scrappiness of that used to be. And I really think that the NBA has gotten to a point where
they're going to have to make a decision.
Yeah, they are.
About which way they're going to have to go with the league.
Absolutely, absolutely. But to kind of go back to what we were talking about before about the relationships between players, it's DeMarcus Cousins has come out and said that he hates Chris Paul. He does not like him. And that's kind of, if you're talking about Patrick Beverley and just his bulldog attitude, that has to be somewhat refreshing compared to the buddy-buddy relationships that you see in the NBA. It's something that you don't see. You don't really see someone come out and say, "I do not like this player."
But I don't know if that's so much DeMarcus hating Chris Paul or just DeMarcus being DeMarcus. You're talking about a guy who literally can't get on with anybody.
Yeah.
So, Chris Paul is a very hard person to like if you're not a fan of one of his teams, just because of how he carries himself, and he's so good. So there's a lot of skill rivalries that are brought about. But if you think about the way that these players are coached to talk to the press, that kind of stuff just doesn't get out. It doesn't get out until they write their autobiography 20 years from now.
Yeah. It's crazy how they talk to the media and how it seems so like
rehearsed
and written from a script. And like I said before, it's an image thing. And I don't think anybody wants to be the bad guy. They saw kind of what it did to LeBron James, and they're like, well, crap. And you see Lance Stevenson coming out and saying, I don't want to be known for blowing in LeBron's ear. I'm a great player. And you find yourself having to talk yourself up and tell people, look, I'm better. Like I'm not. So I don't know if people necessarily want to be enemies with someone because it's going to cast a bad shadow on them and their career, and then with the media and with people want to be liked. I mean, people in the NBA, players in the NBA want to be liked. And I think that's kind of the main driving force behind the fact that you don't see that many rivalries that are based on hatred, really.
Yeah.
The only rivalries you see are of teams that just play each other a lot in the playoffs, like consecutive years in a row. Like that's the only, or past rivalries, like anytime that any of the Texas teams play, it's just because they have all been good for a really long time, and they've stayed good, and they always have some sort of storyline. Those are the really only kind of rivalries. And so a couple years ago with Kevin Durant and LeBron James, we thought, oh, this could be a storyline for years to come. Like Kevin Durant and LeBron James could meet in the finals consecutive year after consecutive year, and it could be the next Jordan and Magic and Larry Bird. But I mean, that remains to be seen with Kevin Durant not getting back since 2012. But I mean, that's all you're going to find. That's the best thing that we have that translates or that compares to that type of rivalry. And I'm afraid we're probably not going to see that type of thing because of everything that we just talked about.
Yeah. And, it's funny that we're talking about Lance Stevenson, and just yesterday he got moved from the Pacers, which I didn't think that he was going to be moved, accepting what looks like to be less money with the Hornets. And I think Lance Stevenson is I think you look at the way Beverly plays and how he's scrappy with his body and kind of like in a Ron Artest kind of way.
Yeah.
But I think Lance Stevenson takes it a step further. I mean, he does trash talk and does and says weird, goofy things on the court.
Yep.
And that guy will be very entertaining to watch. And he's just added to another piece to the Hornets puzzle. I think they're going to be really good this year.
Yeah, they have the makings to be very good. And I think Lance Stevenson is like that little brother that never got to play with the big kids, and he always wanted to prove that he was good enough, and he had to be annoying and do the things that he was a try hard, his entire life. So I think that is, and it's kind of manifesting itself in the way that he plays now. You can see that that's kind of how he's played his entire life. And it kind of went back to the first year that the Pacers played the Heat, and they whenever they went and they went up 2-1 against the Heat in 2012, when everyone thought, oh my gosh, Pacers are going to beat them or whatever. And he had the choking symbol, or he put his hands around his throat when LeBron missed a clutch free throw. And so it kind of has developed since then, and just antic after antic. And it's just, we'll see if he is a good player, if he's let's see that he actually proves that and stops with all the crazy stuff. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Yeah, Hornets are probably going to be a very good team. But one thing I wanted to talk about as well is kind of the overall, and we don't know the landscape of the NBA just yet with the Wiggins and Love trade, but right now, what do you think, like, what team it's really early, but what team do you think is going to make it to the finals in the Eastern and the Western Conference?
Oh, man. Well, being a Rockets fan, I know that we got worse this year, so I know we're not going to make it, but or I don't feel like we will. I'm, open to being surprised. But Western Conference Finals, I think, it all depends on the seeding. But I really can't see, barring, major health concerns, anybody but the Spurs making it to the Western Conference Finals. And it's really going to be between the Thunder or the Clippers for me. Just pure, skill and, at each position and all that sort of stuff. Just, at the bare minimum of statistical analysis, you're talking, those are my three favorites to make it. And if I guess I had to make a decision, I think the Clippers push through and make it this year, because they absolutely torched everybody in the league
Yeah.
And, Doc Rivers is an amazing coach, and you can't tell me that he hasn't already been scheming in the offseason on how to beat the Thunder, because that's what they needed to do to get there. So,
Yeah.
But in Eastern
Yeah.
Conference, obviously Cleveland is favorite, but I'm going to take Cleveland and Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I have always liked Chicago in the way they play. I really enjoy watching Tom Thibodeau's teams. I'm excited about the development of Jimmy Butler, further development of Jimmy Butler. Joakim Noah's stat sheet stuffer, he's so much fun to watch, even though,
Yeah.
most of him is fun to watch.
Yeah.
Most about him is fun to watch. But and Derrick Rose, one of my favorite players to actually sit down and watch through a game of the last I guess the last 3 or 4 years, because he hasn't played in 2. But really hoping that guy comes back and is able to be the dynamic player he was. But yeah, I'd pick Cleveland and Chicago.
Yeah, mine are pretty similar with yours. Being a witness of the past 2 years and the 2 finals, I have to pick San Antonio. They didn't do anything besides Father Time. That's the only thing that really, I think, can beat the Spurs at this point.
Father Time and mother injury.
Yeah, and mother injury. Yeah. Those are really the only things that can, and mother injury kind of is just a branch of Father Time. So they got better in the draft.
Yes, they did.
And they didn't lose any of their major pieces. And Greg Popovich signed a long-term deal. Tim Duncan came back. There's the makings of one last run, and we've been saying that for 4 years now. Oh, Spurs have one last run in them, but it'll be his last. Tim Duncan's last year for sure. So that's really realistically their last run. But in the East, I mean, you look at teams like the Wizards, who added Paul Pierce, who's a veteran guy. I really can't stand Paul Pierce, but he brings the experience that they may lack. You got John Wall, who this year was really his first year without really any injuries. And so he kind of got into his own, and he's going to continue to get better. Bradley Beal is another guy that's young, that's going to get even better. They re-signed Marcin Gortat, and who is a great power forward / center. But the main thing that's going to keep them from going to that next level is if Nene doesn't stay healthy. He is the kind of the next piece that they need to have contribute, or
get ejected from games.
Yeah, exactly. So he is. That team is probably the one to look out for. But I mean, my Eastern Conference standing is, I think, actually has Chicago as the first seed, unless Derrick Rose doesn't play at the level that people are expecting him to. And I expect him to play at least a little bit better than he did whenever he came back initially. I expect him to play pretty well. But yeah, so Chicago and then Cleveland to now that 2 seed could be a 1 if they get Kevin Love right away, or it could be that way just because Andrew Wiggins is so good. But then I have the Wizards as 3. I don't have the Pacers.
So you're discounting Toronto.
Yes, okay. Well, the thing is, Toronto, the way that the conference has to line out, the 4 has to be an Atlantic Division, unless the Atlantic Division is up in the first 3, but it's not going to be. It has to be the divisions, the top 4 of the divisions, even if they have a worse record. So Toronto is probably going to get that 4 seed, but I don't see them having the same type of year that they did last year. I know they're young and they're up and coming, but I really don't see Kyle Lowry DeMar DeRozan being able to get them to that next level. At worst they're going to be, or at best they're going to be where they were last year, and they were bounced in the first round. So
right. Well, I mean, that's half Toronto not being good enough and half just proving kind of the weakness of the Eastern Conference. Although I think that it's, the gap is closing. In my final standings for the, because I have a more vested interest in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
It's, Spurs, Thunder, Clippers. I think, who did I have number 4?
Portland? Mavs?
Yeah. Portland's number 4. Number 5, I think I had the Warriors. And then number 6 was the Suns. Number 7 was us, and number 8 were the Pelicans.
Really?
Or number 6? No, number 6 were the Mavs. Sorry.
Okay, I was about to say, you don't have the Mavs in the playoffs.
The Rockets were 7, and the Pelicans were an outside chance at 8 seed.
Okay,
I can't decide who's going to make it, either the Pelicans or the Suns.
And that's a pretty good standings. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm pretty sure I would go similar. I don't think the Rockets are going to be as high as they were last year, that's for sure. But I don't think they're going to be significantly worse. I think the Mavs are going to, with the addition of Chandler Parsons, sorry. And
I'm not. I didn't want to pay him $15 million.
Yeah, I know, but just him as a player. And then bringing back Tyson Chandler, and they're getting this one last leg. I think they have a potential, and taking the Spurs to 8 games. I know it probably should have been 7 games, and it probably should have been 6 games. But they have the potential to be back at the same type of level that they were when they won the championship. So that could be interesting. But yeah, I think Portland is a team to watch out for as well in the West. I think they just went no brain fart on the Spurs series. I mean, they had decent matchups.
Well, it's like they spent all their energy on beating us.
Yeah.
That was really a bummer to me, because I like Portland. I like their players, I like their team and how they're built. Love LaMarcus Aldridge, and so it was tough for them to be such a close seed to us and having to play that out and having to temporarily hate them for a minute.
Yeah.
Because I really like the way their team is built. They've got really strong wing defenders with long wing defenders with Nicholas Batum and Wesley Matthews. They just are really kind of lacking in that rim protector. If they got somebody like Tyson Chandler or Kevin Garnett or somebody like that who could really lock down the defensive end, they'd be amazing.
Yeah, and Robin Lopez did a pretty decent job, but he's just not that. He's not his brother, Brook Lopez. He's a better defender than his brother, but he's not that guy that can really lock down the paint. So yeah, I agree.
Well, and it's fun to talk about preseason predictions, but to me, I think that I need to wait at least until the season starts and Chase gets back and we kind of all mark it down, and then we'll see where we're at in midseason and kind of do that. But it's I really think that some teams have gotten worse, but some teams have gotten better, and so I think we'll just see how the league plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I think that's all that we have for today. So Luke, thank you for giving your insight, and we will be back next Sunday, to talk about more things NBA and anything else in sports that happens that you guys want to hear about. So, Luke, if you want to say something, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, guys, if you wanted to comment or send us a question or something you wanted us to discuss, feel free to. I mean, we're always looking for content to talk about, and especially if you guys are concerned about it, we want to be concerned about it too if we're not already. So feel free to subscribe and comment up and let us know what you think.
All right, this is Tall Guys Podcast, signing off.